Hello, everybody. This is Miss Ward, music teacher, coming on just to talk to you all for a little bit. I'm sitting outside on my patio, so you may hear a little noise in the background. I hear all types of sounds around us, and um, that's part of one of the things you can do when you're sitting around. Just listen to all the sounds around and think about the different types of sounds. Is it high? Is it low? Is it soft? Is it quiet? Is it loud? All kinds of things that we can do. So while I'm sitting here today, what I wanted to jump on and talk to you about and give you a little bit of information and instruction about is musical instruments and instrument families. See, we've been talking about that in our information for our lesson that you received on Class Dojo. And while we're talking about that, just a reminder to you and your parents that you do get weekly music lessons, that you will have several options, typically at least three or four, maybe more, and even some challenges that I put at the end of the lesson if you complete all of them or you want to challenge and stretch your mind to do more with music. And you can choose from those every week. I don't expect you to do every single one of those, but I do expect that everybody does at least one of those lessons, parts of the lesson each week. And when you do that, it's very simple how you can get it to me. Everything is a little different, I know, because we can't see each other. And we always talk about how music is something that we do together and it's something that we do with others and we make a community with it. So we have to think a little bit outside of the box. So for you to share your music with me this way, you can always have your parents take a picture with their phone. Some of you even have your own cell phones. After you do the work, you can take a picture. If it's something that we're doing, you can have somebody record a short video so that it can send through email or text. And your parents got the information with my email address and my phone number on Class Dojo. I always try to send out a reminder about that you can always reach me between the hours of 9 a.m. and 12 p.m. Monday through Thursday on either of those, email or text or call. But usually, if somebody sends me a message, I'm typically going to respond. Just maybe a little bit difficult for me to talk on the phone if it's during the afternoon or the evenings because I'm here with my kids as well. So without getting too much off track, I want to bring us back into what we're here to do today, and that is to get more instruction about musical instruments and families. So I want to share something with you, and it may be a little bit difficult to see on the screen, but we'll take a look. When I talk about families, I wanted to share with you a picture of my family. And some of you have met them, met my children before. I have triplets that are 5 years old. Layla, Gabrielle, and Marlon. And they are so busy all the time. But there are some things about them that are the same, and there are some things about them that are different. There are some things they got from their mom, from me, and then some things that they got from their dad, just like you. So when we have things in common with each other, we say they have relationships or they're related. Those two words sound a lot alike. Relationships and related means they share something in common. And that's the same thing with musical instruments in their families. We are going to learn a little bit in just a minute with the presentation that some instruments are put in the same family because they're made out of the same kind of material. We make the sound the same kind of way through the same type of vibration, or even they might sound a little bit the same. So you'll get to know more about that as we go along. And I've already gotten some great information and responses from some of you about what your favorite instruments are and why you like them. I want you to continue to do that, and I want you to continue to watch those videos and go on the virtual field trip to hear the orchestra play, and you'll learn even more about it then. So I'm going to start sharing my screen with you. When I share my screen with you, my face will go away and you will start to see parts of my computer. I'm sure you're familiar with that from some of your other teachers. But when you start to see that, don't be afraid. It's just going to be me showing you other things, and you'll hear my voice in the background talking. So just stay with me, okay? So hang tight while I get my screen pulled up. It should be up in just a second. Give me just a moment. All right. And that word that you see there while I'm getting the slideshow pulled up, that word is orchestra. And when we think about, I just said we all come from different families and we have our own family names. For example, my family's last name is Ward. This is the type of family that we have in music. It's one type of family called the orchestra. Now, there are other ways that we can put together different types of instrumental sounds or even voices. When we put voices together, we wouldn't call it an orchestra. We would call that type of family a choir or a chorus. Or sometimes we have even smaller families called quartets or duos or trios. Those are types of families as well. Also, we could use instruments in other ways. We could have a marching band. That would be a type of family with different unique instrument families. But today, specifically, we're talking about the orchestra and the instrument families of the orchestra. All right. So I'm going to read along with you and I want you to follow along. I'm starting right here with orchestra, the blue word. Orchestra is a group of musicians, usually 50 to 100 people, that play a variety of different instruments. Now, I just want you to think about that. 50 to 100 instruments on stage at the same time. That's got to be challenging to keep together. So let's read on and figure out how they stay together and how they're made, the orchestra is made up. The orchestra is made up of musicians, people who play instruments in an orchestra or who sing in a choir. If they practice enough and get really good, sometimes they can even make money. So, boys and girls, the musicians in an orchestra are the people that would be like our family members. Okay. We're all connected in our family or in the orchestra in this case, and we all have specific roles. Some of you may have specific jobs that you do around the house now, that you're home a little bit more. You share the responsibility to make up your home. That's the same thing with the orchestra when we're sharing together different instruments and family parts of the family to make music together. Now we have to have a leader of the family. The leader of the orchestra family, or the family that's composed called the orchestra, is the conductor. The conductor is the person who shows the musicians when to start, stop, to when to start and stop playing and how fast or slow to play the music. When you have 50 to 100 people on stage, and even sometimes more if you were doing like a marching band or something at a football game, you have to have somebody in front of you to help hold it together. Yes, we all can have the beat inside our body. We talk about that when we do rhythm. We internalize, we feel inside our bodies the beat. But the conductor of an orchestra or a group of musicians is who we depend on to keep us all together. Because sometimes we may get lost or we may lose our way just a little bit, but the conductor gives us leadership. All right. The different instruments of the orchestra are grouped into families. Instruments in an instrument family have similar traits but may look, sound, or be played slightly different than the other instruments in the same family. And we talked about that, boys and girls. Just because you're in a family with someone, you may look like your brother or sister, but you are still very different. But you have things that are similar that you share in common with them. This is similar to human families. Oftentimes, human families have some things that are the same, but others that are different. For example, a young girl might look just like her mom, but look different than her brother. Her brother could be really tall and pale, while her sister is really short and tan. At the same time, though, they may have similar personalities. So that's just more comparisons. That's us comparing instrument families to our human families. We have some things that are alike and some things that are different. We have relationships with instruments, and we're related just like we're related to our family members, our brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, moms, and dads. All right, so let's get into the instrument families real quick, boys and girls. There are four instrument families. The first one we're going to talk about today is the strings family. Say that? Strings family. Very good. Instruments in the string family produce sound by the vibration of strings. Instruments in this family include violin, viola, double bass, cello, and harp. And those are just a few, boys and girls. We do have others like the guitar, the ukulele, the banjo. All of these instruments have something in common because remember, we said that's how we have families. We have something in common, and they make sound by vibrating strings. So that's where they get that from, the vibration of stringed instruments. And on these instruments, if you look here, you see a little part that has a white line and then it has a wooden back. That's called a bow. And we can bow stringed instruments. That means pulling the bow across to make them vibrate. Or we can pluck them, and that's a fancy word that's called pizzicato. Pizzicato means we pluck the strings. And a very interesting fact about the hairs on that bow is they're made out of horsehair. So that's have very or horse mane. That's a very interesting fact to remember about the bow for the string family. The next family we have out of our four is the woodwind family. Say that, woodwind family. Instruments in the woodwind family produce sound by blowing vibrating air inside a tube. Instruments in this family include flute, oboe, clarinet, bassoon, and saxophone. Well, let's just start with the saxophone, boys and girls, because this one can be a little tricky. Usually, when I show this to boys and girls, they look at the body of the saxophone and they say that looks a lot like it belongs to the brass family because the body does look like it's made mostly of brass. However, it is not the same because of how it produces its sound. Now, all sound is created through vibrations. Vibrations are created in woodwind instruments by blowing air inside a tube, but I want to give you even more information about that. Most of the time with woodwind instruments, you will see a piece of wood on the mouthpiece called a reed. A reed, boys and girls, is made of wood. So when we blow that air or wind over that piece of wood, that's where the vibration of sound comes from. And that is true with the saxophone, the clarinet, the oboe, and the bassoon and the saxophone. The flute is a little bit different. It is a tube and it has a piece of wood on the inside of it that we can't see with our eye, but it does help to produce the vibration inside of the tube. So that's why we include the flute in the woodwind family. For my third through fifth graders, that we've talked about before with the recorder, even though our recorders that we were playing in school are plastic, they were originally created out of wood. So those instruments are also a part of the woodwind family. The next of the families is the brass family. Now, this is Miss Ward's favorite instrument family because when I was going through school and through college, even when I was in fourth grade and first started my instrument studies, I played the trumpet. And it was my very favorite instrument. I had noticed that instrument from the time I was in about second grade. And I said, I want to play that one because it makes such a royal grand sound. Now, when I was learning to play it, my mom would put me on the porch because it was quite royal and it was quite grand and quite loud. But it is still to this day one of my favorite instruments, and I hope to get to play for you soon. All right. It says for the brass family, instruments in the brass family are made out of brass. They produce sounds by buzzing their lips into a cup shaped mouthpiece and blowing vibrating air inside of the instrument. Instruments in this family include trumpet, French horn, trombone, and tuba. Now, we can even split the families up a little bit. We can say high brass and low brass. When we think of the words high and low, we're thinking about pitch. Pitch is how high a sound is or how low a sound is. Trumpets make a high sound. Trombones and tubas make a low sound. Think of the time in music when we were learning about pitch and we talked about how size changes pitch. Big is low, small is high. Okay? That's the way the music rules go. That's the science of sound. So the smaller the instrument, the higher the sound. The lower the instrument, the lower the sound. In the brass family, this in this day and age, we really don't see that the instruments are really made of brass anymore because that's not really healthy, and we know that playing those instruments made from that could potentially cause us some type of metal poisoning. So now we really don't have that. Those instruments are typically made of the metal called nickel, and they have a gold plate finish or a silver plate finish. And they typically have what we call a bell. If you look at the front of these instruments, and even if I were to have a tuba on here, you see that the bell of the instrument where the sound comes out flares out. That's a relationship that those instruments have. Also, and even though this is not a real picture, but the mouthpiece itself is also made of metal. And we make sound on that by the vibration of our lips blowing air through that mouthpiece. And these are some things that we can know about the brass family and how they're related. The percussion family is the last instrument family that we will discuss tonight. Instruments in the percussion family produce sound by striking, rubbing, or shaking the instrument. They keep the rhythm and the beat of the orchestra. There are many percussion instruments. Examples include piano, xylophone, cymbals, timpani, bass drum, snare drum, triangle, tambourine, and maracas. Boys and girls, these are only a few examples. Literally anything that you can think of could be turned into a percussion instrument. Our bodies could be percussion instruments because we can hit them or strike them. We could also use different things around our house, and that's one of the challenges that we were given, and it will be a part of our lesson for next week, is to create or find something that will be your household instrument or your homemade instrument. And that instrument will likely be a percussion instrument because we want to be able to play percussive sounds by hitting or striking to make a sound. It would be difficult for us to make a woodwind instrument or a brass instrument out of what we have at home. Though not impossible to make a wind instrument, we will likely be seeing more people create or find things around their home that we can hit or strike or shake to make a sound. Now, let's just talk about the piano a little bit. It is not easy to recognize the piano as a percussion instrument. When I think about the percussion family, I think about drums, I think about the xylophones and the mallets, but the piano doesn't seem like that's where it would be. Well, if you were to look inside of the piano, boys and girls, there are small hammers that strike strings when we press the keys. When we strike those strings with those little hammers, because we are striking it to produce the sound, that is why we can put that instrument, the piano, into the, excuse me, percussion family. Now, some people also put it into the string family. Why? Because the strings that are being struck by the hammers inside of the piano are vibrating as well. So the piano is an interesting part of the instrument families because it can really fit into two, but more often we see it in the percussion family, and that's where we will typically see it set up during an orchestra performance. All right, and this is just to show you a few more instruments that you might see. Maracas, we would shake those to make a sound. Tambourine, we would tap those or shake them. Drums, we have mallets to strike. Xylophones, we have mallets to strike. And triangles, we have mallets to strike. And while you are looking at this, again, I want to point out about pitch. Some instruments, just like we talked about brass being high brass and low brass, we can have pitched percussion and non-pitched. Pitched means what, boys and girls? That's right. How high a sound is or how low a sound is. The xylophone, we can play many different sounds, many different pitches, like from our musical alphabet, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. We can go up, we can go down, high and low. But think about a maraca. Can I change the pitch of a maraca very easily, or is the sound that we get just the sound that we get? That's right. The maracas are just what we get. That's what we call a non-pitched instrument. However, when we play the xylophone or the marimba, those instruments of percussion or even the piano, those can change pitches. They can play different high and low sounds. So that would be considered a pitched percussion instrument. So even within our families, brass, woodwind, percussion, and strings, we can even divide them up even into smaller groups of families. So just think about having your mom and dad, your brother and sister, and then you have your aunts and uncles, and then they have kids, and those are your cousins. So you're related, but you still have even more differences. So that's one thing I wanted to point out today that I know that you would be interested in knowing as you were studying instrument families. All right, boys and girls, as I'm sitting here, it has begun to get dark outside, so I want to take this opportunity to just say I hope that you all are engaging in music every day in some form or fashion. Remember, you can listen to your favorite song, you can dance to music, you can sing along with music, you can create your own music about how you feel. There are so many different things that we can do with music, but make sure that you are sharing all of what you're doing, not all, but at least some. Remember, we want to choose at least one activity that you're sharing with Miss Ward, either through her text messages or emails, so that I know you're still using music to stretch and grow your brain in different ways. Again, if you have any questions, you can reach me anytime, Monday through Friday. Usually I'll be able to respond if it's a text message, but if you need to talk to me on the phone or your parents need to talk to me on the phone, 9 a.m. through 12 p.m. Monday through Thursday is the best time to do that. I thank you all for listening to this lesson, and I hope that you're all staying safe and that you are learning lots of great things and spending lots of time with your family and enjoying the time you have together. Remember, music, sharing music together is one of the best ways to do that. If you have any questions, I look forward to hearing from you soon. Take care.